Good morning and welcome to Truth and Transparency. We are not going to waste any time on this beautiful Tuesday. It is June 2nd, right? All day. This live broadcast is Florida versus Shanna Gardner, and I'm calling it out right now. Misconduct alert. Affiant establishes no probable cause, and yet we have some rulings. Yesterday, Shanna Gardner was in the courtroom. So was Mario Fernandez Saldana. But they weren't actually in the courtroom. I think they did everything via Zoom. Their lawyers may have been in there. But first, what is this channel? What is this damn channel called again? This news, First Coast News. They usually play the whole thing.
You at noon.
This is what we get.
Two people accused of orchestrating the murder of Jared Bridegan were back in court this morning. Shanna Gardner and Mario Fernandez Saldana faced the judge in a pretrial hearing. The two are charged in connection with the 2022 shooting death of Jared Bridegan, a 33-year-old father of four. Prosecutors say the killing was a part of a murder-for-hire plot. Our Terry Gilliam is on your side. He was inside that courtroom.
And was inside the courtroom, but they just didn't take any cameras in there.
Joins us now with the very latest details.
Yes, Keith, a lot happening inside that courtroom this morning, but the biggest battle is whether or not the judge will allow a second deposition of Jared Bridegan's widow.
That is not the biggest battle. I am just seriously can't even believe it. This to me is not even the biggest battle, but we'll get into it.
Kirsten Bridegan, take a look at your screen here. This is just some of the video of what it looked like inside that courtroom this morning. But in short, I can tell you the judge said yes, but with conditions. The defense will be allowed to question her once again, but with only tightly focused, limited questions. Gardner's attorneys argued the first deposition left too many questions unanswered. Prosecutors pushed back, saying all questions were answered, though, and that a second deposition would only put the widow through unnecessary pain. There's also a question hanging over this case, whether or not a minor will be able to testify as a witness in this case. The judge,
a 6-year-old, a 6-year-old who was 2.5 sitting in a rear facing car seat,
could rule on that by July 15th. Now, as for Gardner, she's due back in court for another hearing on July 9th. That hearing will be set at 9:30 in the morning. But for now, in Jacksonville, I'm Terry Gilliam, First Coast News.
Terry, how would you have cameras in the courtroom and you guys have not? Why aren't you putting out the material? Why aren't you rolling live? And if you can't roll live, why aren't you releasing all of it after the fact? Now, since we can't rely on Jackson first, whatever here, and that's why yours truly will be in Jacksonville. I'll be live streaming it and in the courtroom, okay, at the same time. At the same time. You want to know how I'm going to do that? Because I'm special, because I figured out a way. Now, let's give you the truth and transparency reporting. First of all, we had some filings and we had some, the most important thing that they're not touching on here is there was a big suppression hearing, huge suppression hearing. I mean, huge. And there was a ruling that came down. Okay. In fact, it was a 11-page order that came down. And I'm going to use Hector here to show us this unbelievable order. I could not be more disappointed in our justice system. Now, it's not because it was denied. It's because there's just no substance behind this denial, in my opinion. Now, let me remind everybody that this was a case and this was an argument that the state did not put forth none written brief. They did nothing. They did not support in any way, in a written fashion, their stance on this evidence not being suppressed. Okay. So with that said, when we look over here at Hector, this was filed June 1st. She wanted to get these, to everybody by June 1st, and she did. And she's like, I am denying the defendant's motion to suppress evidence obtained pursuant an unlawful search warrant and for Franks. And due to document permissions, defense counsel could not redact personally identifying information in the warrants to file them publicly. Accordingly, on April 20th, 2026, defense counsel emailed copies of the warrants and supporting affidavits directly to Chambers with the prosecuting attorney's copies. Okay. Now, and I'm over here like, this reminds you guys, the state wrote nothing. The state provided no written explanation as to why this should not be suppressed. So, and like I've already told you guys, there was a reply written by Kirsten Nelson and her original motion to suppress. She states that the court conducted a hearing on the instant motion on May 13th. The state presented the testimony of Detective Padilla, a digital forensic examiner in Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Investigations Division, in response to defendant's request for a Franks hearing. On May 24th, 2026, defendant relied on or filed a reply and address to the state's arguments and witness testimony at the hearing. The court, having carefully considered the evidence, you guys, the evidence. What? The evidence, the record, and the arguments of counsel. Yeah, arguments of counsel, sure, but you couldn't have considered anything written, right? And being otherwise fully advised in the premises makes the following findings and conclusions of law. What does the evidence have anything to do with anything? That's like saying in the Alec Murdaugh case, the way I look at this is the evidence has nothing to do with why you would deny or allow a new hearing or a new trial. This is about a process. So right there, I was really surprised that, it's like, are we taking a look at what came from this? But anyways, here we go. Her findings are as follows. The defendant argues that the affidavits fail to establish probable cause because they fail to establish a nexus between defendant and the offenses and a nexus between defendant's accounts and the evidence sought. Now, I knew that she was going to heavily rely on this whole thing about where a trial court is asked to review an issuing judge's determination that probable cause supported the issuance of a warrant. You have to give a lot of weight to the person that issued the warrant. Okay. There has to be, for you to interfere, for lack of legal words there, for you to just come along and be like, yeah, I'm going to snap this down. Well, they had no problem doing it in the Luigi Mangione case. So the question is whether the issuing judge had a substantial basis for concluding that probable cause existed. Probable cause is a practical, common sense question. It is the probability of criminal activity and not a prima facie showing of such activity, which is the standard of probable cause. The determination of probable cause involves factual and practical considerations of everyday life on which reasonable and prudent men, not legal technicians, act. Okay? So just remember that. Polk versus Williams. The issuing judge's determination is entitled to great deference. Having reviewed all three affidavits, the court finds that the issuing judge had a substantial basis for concluding that probable cause existed to authorize the challenged warrants. The affidavits describe a months-long investigation into a murder for hire scheme involving witness interviews, surveillance review, and the collection and analysis of legal, financial, location, and other records. The affidavit set forth facts linking defendant to the planning, commission, and concealment of the charged offenses, including her alleged motive, connection to the business that purportedly made payments to the alleged shooter, irregular monetary transfers occurring during significant stages of the investigation. I am just mind blown. Increased communications with suspected participants during significant events in the investigation. Evidence that defendant had previously met the alleged shooter. What evidence that is there that Shanna Gardner met Henry Tenen? I must have missed this. I've been following this case with a fine tooth comb. Now, where? And so this is what I'm saying. These conclusory statements by a judge royally piss me off. Irregular monetary transfers occurring during significant. How does that have anything to do with Shanna Gardner? You would need substantial records to show this is how it was in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, right? When you want to talk about irregular monetary transfers, how do you know if something's this goes to Cyree, everything that Cyree is talking about. You need at least 365 days worth of shit. This is pattern of life. POL. If I was Shanna Gardner, I'd be calling up Cyree. That's who I'd be calling up. I'd be, and maybe they just need an email from me and say, everything that was written in this order is all around pattern of life. And you need to bring in a pattern of life expert that wants to talk about how much data you would need to even make comments like this. But I say, what evidence is there that the defendant had previously met the alleged shooter? Where is that evidence? If I missed it, all I'm asking you to do is provide it to me. You guys, what Judge Kite, I believe, did here is she looked at what came from the search warrants, like what the returns were. It's about what you had before you got the warrants. What did you have before you got the warrants? And there's no answer to any of the arguments. Like every argument that the defense made, there's nothing that says, no, you're wrong about that, except for one thing. And they're talking about Blake. And we're going to get into this. Because I think I even said it. I was like, well, do social media accounts, is that different than like talking about someone's, iCloud, their Google? Like a social media platform is what centers around Blake. And it's actually Instagram. So here the court further finds that the affidavits established a significant between the accounts identified in the warrants and the evidence sought. What? You guys, usually it's like, where is there? So let me just back up. Having reviewed all three affidavits, the court finds that the issuing judge had a substantial basis for concluding that probable cause existed to authorize the challenged warrants. The affidavits describe a months-long investigation into a murder for hire scheme involving witness interviews, surveillance review, and the collection and analysis of legal, financial, location, and other records. And guess what? What that review would have showed you is that Shanna Gardner was at home the entire time. Is that Shanna Gardner's phone records never once communicated with Henry Tenen prior to that, because they had different phone records. Because remember, these are like a year after the fact that they're going and trying to get stuff. What's the surveillance review show? What's this about involving witness interviews? What witness interviews? Like, wouldn't you be specific about this? And the collection and an analyst of legal, financial, location, and other records. The affidavits further set forth facts, you guys, facts, linking defendant to the planning, the commission, and the concealment of the charged offenses, including her alleged motive. You guys, that means that anybody that gets divorced has a motive to kill. Connection to the business that purportedly made payments to the alleged shooter. Mario Fernandez Saldana paid out of an account that Shanna Gardner's name was just recently put on, in terms of like her being on that LLC. Very interesting timing of that. Irregular monetary transfers occurring during significant stages of the investigation. What? How do you know that they're irregular if you don't go back and check the pattern? Right? You can't tell if they're irregular unless you go and you get the material. But again, how does that have anything to do with Shanna Gardner? Increased communications with suspected participants during significant events in the investigation. And this was the main argument that the defense was saying. Yeah, there was this increased communications because of all the ruses that were being fucking, these were reactionary because of what the prosecutors were doing on purpose. You guys, they were purposely setting off grenades. And it's like, no one's supposed to talk about the fact that don't step. Like, what do you mean? Holy shit, did you see that there was an arrest? You don't think people are going to talk about that? There's nobody on any wiretapping saying, and you're intercepting, plotting, planning. Where is that? There is none of that. I'm over here just like, wait, so the state, think about this. The state can do things and then retroactively use it to then get search warrants on you. You guys, I would think it would be weird if Shanna Gardner was not talking at all about it. And just because you say something like, hey, the police are probably listening in on this, I'm not going to talk about this. Because why? Because they'll use anything against me, right? But making that comment is probable cause. Interesting. But there is no evidence that the defendant had previously met the alleged shooter. In fact, it's the opposite. They set off another grenade when they brought back Henry Tenen's dog in August after his arrest to Jeremy Ordway, brought the dog back to him. We have the body-worn camera, and they tell Jeremy that Henry Tenen's been arrested and that they believe that his truck is involved in a murder. We believe that his truck was used in a murder. Jeremy Ordway is the tenant of Mario Saldana. That's how Mario Saldana, because then Jeremy calls Mario Saldana and tells him this. This is how they found out that Henry Tennant was arrested in August. And they just completely lie and leave this out. And so I don't know if when you're having these suppression hearings, you need to start planning that they are going to be an all-day event, potentially 2-3 days, because we need to walk you through everything. You need to walk a lawyer through everything, or not a lawyer, but a judge through everything, because they don't know the facts of the case. I don't give a fuck what y'all think. I'm promising you this right now. I've witnessed it myself. I've had to defend myself, and I've had to literally like walk somebody through. And guess what? If you need to call people to the stand to do it, then that's what you do. But if it's just like some strategy, then why do you even do like don't even try to suppress something then? Because if you're truly trying to get something tossed, bring Johns in. Bring these fuckers in. Because you need to lay down the fact that, did you tell Jeremy Ordway this material? And then play the freaking body camera. And then bring in Jeremy. I mean, this is how Shanna Gardner found out about that. I mean, it's a fact. That's the fact. That's the fact. Jeremy, did you call Mario Saldana? Yes. What'd you tell him? So I'm just blown. All of these things right here, increased communications with the suspected participants during significant event. Suspected participants. You guys, there is no warrant that said that. If the warrant was limited in scope to the people that they suspect is involved in the crime, then why doesn't the warrant say that? You understand? Like, if you think that Mario Saldana did this with John Biggerstaff, Henry Tennant, Jeremy Ordway, and potentially another dude, and Shanna Gardner was involved, then that's the material that you are seeking. The communications between those people, right? But it's like, we have no idea who's involved, so let's just go get everything. And it's like, I guess my best example is you go and preserve it like an onion so you can peel back when you get more information, and then you go and you seek like this portion of it, whatever. But here, basically, Judge Kite is like is saying that you are allowed to take the apple and just bite into the apple, okay, whole. All right, because we're going to give you the whole apple versus giving you the onion so that you have to peel back when you get more information. Then, yeah, we're going to preserve it. So you're going to preserve this onion and you're going to peel it back. And when you do, it's like going into somebody's house and you see something, then you amend the search warrant. But here, I just feel like this decision is like, here's the apple. You can go and bite wherever you want because you have the whole thing. Go find what you need. Here it is. You don't know where it could possibly exist, but it could be in that phone somewhere, and we need everything. The court further finds that the affidavits establish a sufficient nexus between the accounts identified in the search warrants and the evidence sought. What is it? Like, I'm like, which is what? This is all conclusions. You're giving me conclusory statements. What are they even like? I think that the judge should not be able to write this. The court further finds that the affidavits establish a sufficient nexus between the accounts identified in the warrants and the evidence sought, which is what? What accounts? What evidence was sought? Everything's conclusory. Nothing was addressed. Given the nature of the offenses under investigation, the issuing judge could reasonably conclude that communications, account activity, location information, and other electronically stored data associated with defendants' accounts would likely contain evidence related to the planning, commissions, or concealment of the charged crimes. How? How can they reasonably conclude that when the information that they had prior to 2023, when they went and got this stuff, said that Shanna Gardner was not at or near the crime scene, was never in January going and doing trial runs to go commit a murder in February? I'm laughing here. I said, ha. This is funny to me. Because what? You're going to need to be specific, because this is all conclusory to me. So you're basically saying Shanna Gardner conspired with these people. Well, show me where they can put Shanna Gardner with any of these people plotting and planning a murder, because I haven't heard it one time said. And in fact, all I hear is the opposite, that Shanna Gardner is nowhere to be found. And I'm over here like, this is all called conspiracy right here, conspiring. This is what this is. So I'm confused. Was Shanna Gardner ever charged like with conspiracy? Because I didn't think that she was, and I didn't think that there was probable cause for that. And I thought that wasn't even presented. Accordingly, the court concludes again from what? That the issuing judge had a substantial basis for finding probable cause to issue the challenge warrants. You guys, if anybody reads this, put this shit into AI and ask them what's specific. And now here, hold on. Let me show you why I get all crazy with it. Defendant argues, relying on United States versus Blake. Well, they relied on a lot. That the warrant for defendant's iPhone constitutes an impermissible general warrant because it effectively authorized a search of the entire device without a temporal limitation. Defendant further argues, relying on State versus Demons, that the warrants for the defendant's iCloud and Google accounts are overbroad in both time and subject matter because the temporal scope of November 1st, 2021 through March 27, 2023 is unsupported by probable cause. The court finds that the defendant's reliance on Blake is unpersuasive. Unpersuasive? I said, but why? How is it unpersuasive? Let me tell you why. I'm saying why. How? How is it unpersuasive? There is nothing to persuade here. They didn't even fucking write a brief. They have no argument. They're not backing up their work. They didn't write a fucking thing. I've never seen this in all the years that I've covered a case where the other side just refuses to write a motion in opposition of the defendant wanting to suppress evidence. What? Yeah, it happened in this case. They didn't write anything. They went to oral arguments on May 13th. And the defense is going blind into what the argument is from the state as to why these should be upheld. And Heather says they knew they did not have to because Judge Kite will just save the day like Hitler. Why are judges doing prosecutors' jobs? I have no words. So she's unpersuaded. Unpersuaded. Well, why do I have to persuade you? What am I persuading? Like, there's no argument here from the other side. They can't even write and put anything in writing. In relevant part, Blake concerned warrants directed to Facebook. And I'm like, I thought it was Instagram accounts that required disclosure of virtually every category of information contained in those accounts, notwithstanding the government's ability to request narrow categories of such from the provider. Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think that the argument should have been having a Celebrite expert in the courtroom because that's what was used to download the material versus like the person that did it? Like, you want the software expert, right? Because I think the defense has to be reading this saying, what the hell is she talking about? When you're downloading a phone, like, whatever's in your phone is being downloaded. Like, for example, when I have all these Celebrite extractions for cases, and I can see messages from that extraction from people with their Facebook accounts, people with Marco Polo app, people with, whatever, all these different apps. So here, Judge Kite believes that the accounts require disclosure of virtual every category. Wait, see Blake, blah, blah. In distinguishing social media warrants from traditional electronic storage searches. So they're saying that you're wrong here because this is a C. Blake, in distinguishing a social media warrants from traditional electronic storage searches. The 11th Circuit observed that the hard drive searches often require investigators to obtain and review broader categories of data because relevant evidence may be concealed in unexpected locations. If I'm them, I'm sorry, but I'm appealing this decision. In unexpected locations. In the Facebook warrants at issue in Blake, the warrants here concerned a physical cell phone containing locally stored data and applications that could not be segregated by a third-party provider before execution of the warrant. What? The man testified to that it could be, just for the record, that you can, like, we know what Padilla testified to. For purposes of executing a search warrant, a cell phone presents many of the same practical concerns identified in hard drive cases, as evidence may be stored across numerous applications, file types, and locations not readily identifiable in advance. No shit. Then you peel back the onion. You don't bite into it blindly. Like, that's my argument. Is that it's like when you go into someone's house and you're going to go do something and then you see something else, then you have to go and get another search warrant because you saw something else. Because it was in like plain sight and shit like that, right? Under these circumstances, the absence of a temporal restriction did not render the warrant insufficiently particular. Defendant's reliance on demons is likewise unpersuasive. I'm like, who do you have to persuade? As recognized in demons, the preferred method of limiting the scope of a search warrant for a cloud account will usually be time-based. Unlike the warrant challenge in demons, however, the warrants for the defendant's iCloud and Google accounts contained an express temporal limitation. Further, the temporal scope of those warrants was supported by the affidavits. The affidavits described an alleged conspiracy spanning several months before the homicide. Do you understand how, when you have Henry Tenon has no communication with anybody months before the homicide? Where is this stated in the probable cause? This is fucking crazy to me because I know that the evidence, Henry Tenon is not being talked to on any device prior to fucking January. Where is this information? Just because the affidavit stated that doesn't make it true. And those are the false statements I conclude. This is written by a judge. This is written by a judge. This is Judge Kite. I want to know what case she is talking about because this can't be the Shanna Gardner case. I said, where is this stated in the PCA? I want to see this. And any of these, the affiants, probable cause affidavit, financial transactions occurring through the investigation, communications among alleged participants before and after the offense, and post-offense efforts to conceal evidence and avoid law enforcement detection. You guys. Oh my God. In light of those allegations, the temporal scope extending from November 1st, 2021 through March 27, 2023 was supported by probable cause and reasonably tailored to the evidence sought. All of this is said by no one ever in any probable cause. This is just all made up by Judge Kite. Look at this. This is the argument right here by a reasonably trained officer reviewing the iCloud, iPhone, and Google warrants would recognize they lack probable cause. Taking the iCloud warrant as the example, the court must excise the three categories of allegations before analyzing what remains. Number one, allegations concerning persons other than Ms. Gardner, because the magistrate found no probable cause for conspiracy. Bare bones or bare assertions of the affiant's suspicions, beliefs, or conclusions unsupported by underlining facts going to veracity. Right here, reliability and basis of knowledge. Like, she doesn't fucking talk about anything that Judge Kite does not mention the fact that how far did you have to go back and try to realize that, okay, we have to preserve this evidence somehow. If this stuff all gets tossed, like, then what? Exactly, then what? Well, I'm over here saying, so you're going to sit here and tell me that the defense wrote in a motion that the magistrate found no probable cause for conspiracy, and that's all you've been writing over and over in here is the plotting and planning? An alleged conspiracy. Well, the woman that issued the warrant to begin with she didn't find probable cause for that because the magistrate found no probable cause for conspiracy. So I'm confused. Do I need to just call up Diane Menashe right now and ask her if she can walk me through this? Because this is crazy. I like to think that I can connect dots real quick. When I read this, that's why I didn't go live last night. I was literally so hot over this. I said, hold on a second. Because I'm all about, okay, if you say yes or no, I don't care why you say yes or no. I I don't care when you say yes or no. I want to know the why behind it. So that's me. I'm like, okay, great, denied. Awesome. I want to read why. I want to read how you're denying this. Because I saw the state we all did. We saw the state stand there and not be able to back up anything that they fucking wrote in any of their shit. And they refused to even write about it. Put it in writing. Defend it. And here you're going to reward that type of fucking pussy ass bullshit in a courtroom? Why? Why are judges doing prosecutors' jobs? Unbelievable to me. Unfucking believable. Literally, guys, I was so pissed yesterday. Bella's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I am fucking pissed. I haven't been this pissed on a fucking ruling since Hitler in 2025. Okay. It's 2026. It's summertime. I don't need to get I literally was like, dude, I am pissed for the United States of America. I'm not pissed for Shanna Gardner. My passion and my pissed offness is, dude, what is going on here? These judges are taking our rights and just lighting them on fire every day. Every day. And then when I thought I couldn't get any more fucking pissed, I see this good faith exception bullshit that I'm about to read to you. As you can see, I already say ha. I'm like, oh, get out of here. Ha. The good faith exception. Ha. Now I'm convinced it is shit. This is shit, Judge Kite. And I'm going to write a letter. The good faith exception, even assuming arguendo that the affidavits did not establish probable cause or the warrants were not sufficiently particular, suppression is not warranted because this case falls within the good faith exception recognized in the United States versus Leon case. Dead. Good faith? No, it is not in good faith. The record reflects that law enforcement officers acted in objectively reasonable reliance. And I'm over here, how? You can't just say that. You cannot just say those words without saying how they did it. Look at, there is no explanation, you guys. How? It's ending. Letter C, good faith exception. It is 2 sentences. Three sentences. The record reflects that law enforcement officers acted in objectively reasonable reliance. And I'm just like, well, on the warrants, period. How? You have to tell me how. In light of the scope and detail of the information contained in the supporting affidavits, the court cannot find that the affidavits were so lacking in it's indicia, but indica, whatever people want to call it, it's an identity, but of probable cause as to render such reliance objectively unreasonable. And I'm like, this would get you an F on a paper in school. You know, all those papers when you had to write them, or even in grade school, and you have to have a beginning paragraph, supporting sentences. Remember that shit? Where's the supporting sentences in this bullshit? This would get you an F in the 4th grade. Right here. My son would have gotten an F in the 4th grade at the Southwest School District. An F. An F in elementary school for this. What does this tell us? Absolutely nothing. Exactly. You have to, where is your supporting? So I was like, dude, this is wild. Wild. We don't even know why this is Oh, it acted in objectively reasonable reliance on the warrants. And then I go and grab, where's here? Objective reasonableness requires officers to have a reasonable knowledge of what the law prohibits. Okay? No reasonably trained officer would conclude the warrants establish probable cause. And we just listed that. Then there's more. It says, when you take away, the court must get rid of these three categories of allegations before analyzing what remains, in which is you must take away the allegations concerning persons other than Miss Gardner, because the magistrate found no probable cause for conspiracy. Then, bare bones or just bare assertions of the affiant's suspicions, beliefs, or conclusions unsupported by underlying facts, going to veracity, reliability, and basis of knowledge. And then the third thing is allegations implicating constitutionally protected activities, such as Miss Gardner's communications with defense counsel, just because she called her lawyer after something happened, just because she called a crisis PR management firm. It is no secret that, first of all, her family has a bunch of money. So guess what? They could actually afford to do all that type of stuff. Do you know how many people couldn't afford to do that type of stuff? Number one. Okay. So for me or for you, we wouldn't even be able to do any of that, make those type of phone calls for that to even probably be able to happen. But for that to be used against you because you were like, look, these people in the media are writing this crap, blah, 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 blah. What remains is association, motive, and reactive post-arrest behavior, which are three categories of circumstantial evidence that courts have held are constitutionally insufficient to establish probable cause. Not one of these categories satisfies a single element of either charged offense. I mean, this is nuts. And then that's what Exhibit A was all about. Like when you just leave this Exhibit A, this is what you have. Just these statements. When you take all the stuff out of there that she just pointed out, you're left with these statements. And it's just like every single one of them, nothing points to Shanna Gardner. Just because I don't want the government to hear my conversations doesn't mean I'm doing something illegal. Why would I ever want the government to potentially be able to use something against me and take it out of context, right? So me saying anything about like, I can't even believe. Like I said, fucking F. Absolute bullshit. In light of the scope and detail of the information contained in the supporting affidavits, the court cannot find that the affidavits were so lacking in indicia of probable cause as to render such reliance objectively unreasonable. And I said, no example, none, nothing supporting shit. And this is word salad, and this would get you an F in the 4th grade. I think actually it would get you a 1 because they do 1 through 4. So it'd get you a 1. If my son ever wrote a paragraph about what he read and had to make it, unbelievable to me. Frank's request, defendant contends that the affidavits omitted material information because the affiant did not advise the issuing judge that Apple and Google possesses the technical capability to conduct a more targeted search of defendant's accounts. According to defendant, disclosure of this information may have resulted in the issuance of narrow warrants. You know, here this is just more gaslighting. And that's not what she said. Okay. When she went to this reasonably objective bullshit, she cites out child abuse, premeditated murder. The affiant does not place Miss Gardner at the scene, connect her to the shooter, or allege any act by her before or on the night of February 16, 2022. Because the affidavit does not allege that Miss Gardner personally shot Mr. Bridegan, the state's theory necessarily rests on principal liability under Section 77.011 Florida statutes, requiring the affidavit to establish probable cause that she aided, abetted, counseled, hired, or procured the murder with knowledge that it would be committed. It does not. Aided or abetted. No allegations place Miss Gardner at the scene in communication with the shooter or taking any act to assist in the killing. Counseled. No allegation states that Miss Gardner counseled anyone to kill Mr. Bridegan. Hired or procured. I mean, do you see this? How do you, as a judge, see what your fellow colleague, because you're all lawyers, wrote in support of the Fourth Amendment? And you reward what with what? You don't have an answer for any of this shit. There's no answers for this. She is breaking it all the way fucking down to everything. And it's like, show me where this is. Show me where there is aiding and abetting. Show me where there is the child abuse. Show me where there is that counseled, hired, or procured. Show me. Hired or procured. There are no allegations Miss Gardner directly hired or procured the shooter. This is the only sub-theory with some factual basis, but it collapses under scrutiny. The hired or procured theory depends on a single chain. Miss Gardner's trust, First Choice Home Realty LLC, payments to Mr. Tenen. That chain has multiple fatal breaks. First, the affidavit fails to allege Miss Gardner directed or controlled the funds in the trust account. Rather, all it states is that Miss Gardner's parents make deposits in the account. So why weren't they arrested? Even assuming there was some factual allegation suggesting Miss Gardner directed the money from the trust to First Choice Home Rentals bank account, there is not. But she's saying there is not, though. There is another broken link in the chain. The affidavit fails to allege that any of the funds purportedly transferred from the trust to First Choice Home Rentals funded any payment to Mr. Tenen. Any connection between the two is pure, impermissible speculation. Moreover, the affidavit does not establish that the post-shooting payments came from the First Choice Home Rentals. It states that Mr. Tenen received 3 handwritten checks from Mr. Saldana and not from First Choice Home Rentals. That's how it says it in the affidavit. For $2,000, $3,000, and $5,000 after the shooting. Importantly, the affidavit cites no evidence, direct or circumstantial, that these payments to Mr. Tenen were in exchange for the murder. Do you understand they had Henry Tenen and they could not get him to say any of this shit? But yet he agreed to be saying, I am the shooter? Wild shit, right? Importantly, the affidavit cites no evidence, directed or circumstantial, that these payments to Mr. Tenen were exchanged for the murder, let alone that Miss Gardner directed, ratified, or even knew about them. The affidavit then separately notes that at some unknown time, officers found 3 check stubs in Mr. Tenen's truck made out to Mr. Tenen signed by Mr. Fernandez Saldana. But these dateless check stubs signed by Mr. Fernandez Saldana on behalf of First Choice Home Rental LLC, deposited at unknown times for unknown purposes, are not connected to the 3 handwritten post-shooting payments. The affidavit alleges no nexus between those check stubs and the post-shooting checks, let alone the alleged murder for hire. Nor does it allege that Ms. Gardner made, directed, or authorized payments to Mr. Tenen. So just the specificity that she points out in her arguments, so well written, to literally walk this judge to the finish line. And this is the shit we get back. This is how Judge Kite feels about when a woman of color who oral argued this against the state nutted it. In fact, I'm going to email her today to let her know that in the past 3 years of all the cases that we've covered, just in the last 3 years, that is the best suppression motion I've ever seen written out of everybody that we've covered. It was. Now listen to this. This is for the Frank's request. Defendant contends that the affidavits omitted material information because the affiant did not advise the issuing judge that Apple and Google possesses it. We talked about that. So here, defendant's argument does not establish a basis for a Frank's violation. The alleged omission does not undermine the factual basis for probable cause or call into question any representation contained in the affidavits. What does that mean? Are you going to sit here and say that the alleged omission does not undermine the factual basis for probable cause or call into question any representation contained in the affidavit? Are you kidding me? That's all they do. Rather, it concerns the scope. I said, what? I said, no, John's lied. And it concerns the scope of the authorized searches and the possibility that a more limited search methodology may have been available. Thus, defendant's claim challenges the breadth of the warrants, not the veracity of the affidavits. I say, excuse me, what? That's all. She uses the words veracity. Oh my God. I'm like, what is she talking about? You guys, what is she talking about? What is going on here? Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Wait till you see the jailhouse snitch that we're about to uncover and show you guys, who is going to claim the most off-the-wall, unrecorded shit you've ever heard or seen in your life. Foya and Find Out, welcome new member. Tooth Fairy, welcome new member. Sherry, welcome new member. Rando, welcome new member. Melissa, welcome new member. John, Hoppy Master doing thumbs up and hearts, peace signs, you name it. Prison Beef Central, yeah, gifted the Transparency membership. Black Cat, Karen, love her. 10 memberships. Common Sense, hey, we have a baby, a member for 9 months. Congratulations, baby number 1. Your work matters more than you realize. Makes you wonder, has the system always been this corrupt? Probably, yep, all day. It's unsettling to think how much would remain hidden without people like you bringing truth to light. Well, I mean, how much do you have to be put on blast? It doesn't matter. Like, these judges are just doing whatever they want. And nothing happens, except just the other day, we had a judge that in Cuyahoga County over here, we put in front of the court for fucking doing something. I'll show the clip, but I'm just like reading this stuff. I'm just like, I can only imagine what the defense thinks this morning and last night when they got this. The court finds that the defendant has likewise failed to demonstrate that the alleged omission resulted from a deliberate falsehood or a reckless disregard for the truth. I said, oh my God, they made a whole goddamn exhibit. The only evidence identified by the defendant is Detective Padilla's acknowledgement that he has previously seen Apple and Google warrant returns limited by time. I said, what? That's the only evidence, huh? That was identified by the defendant. This is just false. However, Detective Padilla was not the affiant. No shit. However, the Detective Padilla was not the affiant for the warrants at issue, did not participate in obtaining them, and did not process the returns. He was definitely involved in this case. The detective's testimony regarding Apple and Google's practices in general, to the extent he had knowledge of them, does not establish that any affiant intentionally or recklessly omitted material information from the warrant applications. So why aren't we calling witnesses in these hearings? You understand that? This right here is proof to me that why aren't we calling basically what she wrote right here is that if you don't call the witness that did it during the suppression hearing. And so what we got to start treating suppression hearings like is Frank's hearings as one. Because what this judge believes is that she doesn't believe that there's a Frank's violation. And it's like, no, we're asking for a Frank's hearing because we have to show you proof, right? We have to show you a substantial, like, here, take a look at this. Well, I don't know what Exhibit A did, but it's like, here it is. Here's Exhibit A. Exhibit A. And this is, if you were to take everything out, this is what you're left with. And anybody that would read this, you would ask yourself, what do you believe? What happened here? What is this probable cause for? Bridegan had just dropped off his twins at home, or whom he shared custody with his ex-wife, just dropped them off. Bridegan had just dropped off his twin children, whom he shared custody with his ex-wife, Shanna Gardner. That's the sentence. Where? Drop them where? Gardner resides in Jacksonville Beach with the subject, Mario Fernandez Saldana, to whom she is married. Fernandez further stated that he and Gardner were attempting to gain majority, if not full custody of the kids because they were tired of consulting the victim. This is all from the affidavit. Affiant reviewed the victim and Gardner's divorce decree and associated filings, and the custody dispute between both sides remained hotly litigated over the past few years. Detectives from JBPD Special Investigations Unit conducted a canvass from the Gardner Fernandez Saldana residence to the homicide location. You guys, and what needs to be said after all of these things? And what? Like, what are you talking about? And just because you had a canvas, awesome. What did it? First Choice Home Rental LLC receives incoming transfers from Gardner's trust account, which is funded by the parents of Gardner. Gardner and Fernandez Saldana are both listed as owners of the First Choice Home Rentals LLC and have access to the business account. How do you know that? Because both of their names are on it? Did you go talk to the LLC people? Did you go talk to that bank? Were they, I mean, I don't know. The First Choice, like, where do they bank out of? Have you ever seen her deposit? Has she ever signed any checks? No. Okay. During a search of Tennant's truck, 3 check stubs were found attached together from the same page of the checkbook, indicating the checks were given to Tennant at the same time, but dated for different dates. The checks were made out to Tennant and received from First Choice Home Rental LLC. The checks were signed by Fernandez Saldana. Investigation further revealed that at the time of Jared Bridegan's murder, Gardner and Fernandez Saldana were separated and planning to divorce based on witness statements. But since the homicide, have publicly maintained their marital status. What do you mean? She was living in Washington and he was in Orlando. Investigation further revealed that at the time of Bridegan's murder, Gardner and Fernandez Saldana were separated. Oh, I just said that. Next is Gardner has moved to the state of Washington. She obtained a Washington state driver's license and has enrolled the twins in school there. Friends of Gardner's have stated, again, friends of Gardner's have stated that Fernandez Saldana and Gardner are waiting for this to blow over, referring to the homicide investigation prior to selling the home. The one in Jacksonville? Who are these friends? Financial records obtained on 1/19/2023 no longer show Gardner's trust account with this like blank bank, with a large portion of the funds being transferred into Gardner's personal account. Gardner has 2 accounts for each of her twins. In the hours following Tenen's arrest, which I'm like, which one? He was arrested twice. Fernandez Saldana and Gardner exchanged multiple phone calls and texts. And I'm like, this has to be the August one when he was, because, and then this is why it's really important. Yeah, after you drove then to Jeremy's house to give them the dog that Tenen had in the vehicle, right? You had to give him his dog. And you said, oh, yep, his truck was used in some murder, blah, blah, blah. And then that's why Jeremy called Mario and Mario called Gardner. Toll records, like phone. Tolls were obtained for Gardner that show she obtained her second cellular device and used this device to primarily to connect Fernandez Saldana and one other individual, KJ, in the months following Tenen's arrest in August. Gardner made statements to a friend, KJ, regarding the investigation and professed a fear of speaking without encryption. Gardner discussed how she was resent to speaking about the case because she was being recorded or that law enforcement was watching her phone. Yeah. Oh my God, she's trying to conceal talking. No, she's just saying, I'm not talking about this. Like, if somebody wants to ask her questions about it. Gardner's second phone bearing phone number blah, blah, blah was activated on August 25th, 2022, approximately 1 week after Tenen's arrest on August 18th, 2022, and terminated on October 25th, 2022. So let me get this straight. She went and got not a burner phone then. She just opened up another account on her phone line. That's not going and getting a burner. Okay? That's not going and getting a burner. Which, why wouldn't she? Why would she want to get a phone that's attached to her name and talk? What? Like, this is just so stupid. And I'm over here saying the reports prove otherwise. Yes, right here. Through authorized interception of wire and electronic communications, law enforcement learned that Gardner also knew of Tenen, confirming she previously met him. No. That's what look at this sentence. He's saying confirming she previously met him. No. Just because she said Gardner also knew of Tenen. Yeah, Gardner knew of Tenen. How? Because of what happened in August, the arrest, and then Jeremy calling for Mario calling her. Okay, Mario calling her. And then in a conversation with KJ, once Henry was arrested, they're like, who is this? And she's like, I don't fucking know. I know that it's a tenant of Mario's, and it's something to do with his truck. Where'd you get that information from? That's not her personal knowledge. And there's paper trails of that. So for this right here is where the confirming she previously met him, that right there is a known falsehood and lie of John's, because he knows how they orchestrated this whole, hey, we're going to put off these little grenades around and we're going to force this action upon them to talk, because we're going to have, because Jeremy's going to call fucking, what's his name? Mario. And Mario's then going to call Gardner, or Gardner calls Mario. It doesn't matter which way this is happening. When somebody's arrested for your ex-husband's murder, don't you think you're going to talk about it? But seeing what you're trying to use is what your little ploy did, which was, we're going to tip off Jeremy, and we're going to give him information. And that information, we're going to act like we never gave him. So then we can use it in a warrant to act like, how did Shanna Gardner know this? Get the fuck out of here. That's what they did in this case. And for the judge to act like she knows what's up, then you didn't read any of these reports, because it's there. Because some of these dumbasses wrote it in their reports, what they told Jeremy Ordway on that morning at 6:30 a.m., which is before any phone call took place between Fernandez, Saldana, and Shanna Gardner. I will debate anybody in this case, just like I'll debate anybody in any case that I cover. This is what Jose Baez just could not believe, the lies. This is lies. Again, Jeremy was told all about this arrest, all of this shit, and then told it to Mario. Both, so for Johns to write confirming she previously met him is absolutely right there. That when judge wants to say the only evidence identified by the defendant to be able to get this franks, or that this was omitted or added or whatever, dude, there wasn't just omissions. There was additions. There was stuff that was knowingly false in this motherfucker. And here is this highlight of just one of them. Confirming she previously met him. No, sorry. That was you guys. Both Gardner and Fernandez Saldana utilized their their devices to conduct data sessions. They can't put them talking to each other, but that they both had data sessions registering at approximately at the same time for approximately the same period of time, following the lead up and announcement of the arrest. And again, what arrest? What arrest? After the leaked information to create this communication, you pieces of shit. Like, again, that's what I'm talking about, setting off these grenades. And these are what the defense is saying. You guys are talking about reactionary conversations. That's what you're using for probable cause. And it's just sick. Gardner and KJ spoke about utilized FaceTime to communicate, discussing that doing so would circumvent attempts to tap their phones. Yeah, they want to talk without you listening. I don't want you guys listening in on my private conversation about, I don't know, my period, about whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't want you fucking listening in on my conversation. That's how I would feel every single day. Fuck all the way off. You want to listen to my conversations? Go get a warrant, right? And how about this? Don't lie about it. Let's see if you can do that. Go get a warrant and not lie about how you're going to get that warrant. Be truthful. But it doesn't matter because the judge, they'll take care of it. Don't worry. Gardner and KJ discussed a press announcement regarding a potential arrest in the murder of Bridegan, and Gardner made statements to KJ about whether she should warn Mario. She should warn Mario and discuss possibly using her neighbor's phone to speak with him. This is again when it was leaked out that they were going to. There was this big press conference coming. And that was when they announced in January that they arrested Henry Tenen. And guess what? Henry Tenen made no statements prior to that point that he was the shooter or any of this shit. They just, again, made it so that, hey, we're going to get you all to talk and we're going to use it against you. And we're going to make it seem like, oh my God, look at afterwards, we're talking. Sure. Whatever you say. Okay, so after we get through that bullshit, this now blew my actual mind. The state's 16th supplemental discovery exhibit, okay? They are listing these new category witnesses. Fred Barton was somebody that John Biggerstaff knew and supposedly had held guns of his. We're going to get into that. It's funny that they're now just releasing that. Carlos, Jimmy Jones is where the truck was stored, okay, of Henry Tenen. Emmanuel Alexander, I said, oh, wait, is this like a Tenen inmate friend or is this a Mario inmate friend? Because obviously it's not a female, right? And then I was able to see that Deanne Duncan here, Office of the Public Defender's Counsel okay, so they're putting her as a witness. I'm like, oh my God, we have a jailhouse snitch opportunity coming on. And then expert witnesses, they have this firearms section expert for firearms, and then a latent print unit expert that they're adding. Okay. They have emails and text messages over to the defense attorneys. Emails and text messages, State of Florida and Victoria Welch, State of Florida and Sissy Adams Jones, State of Florida and Michael Bosson, provided at the request of defense counsel for Shanna Gardner in response to defendant's motion to compel specific discovery. Yep. Any written or recorded statements and the substance of any oral statements made by defendants, any written, so all this stuff, oral statements made by a co-defendant, any material or information that has been provided by an informant, right there, witness. And I'm over here like, where are John Biggerstaff and all this other bullshit? Like, let's go, John Biggerstaff. Let's go. Well, statements relayed by Mario Fernandez to, there it is, Emmanuel. And I was like, oh my God. So this is not a Tenen inmate. This Emmanuel guy, he was in county with Mario. And this is what it says. It says, here is the statements relayed by Mario to Emmanuel as follows. Okay, now get ready to absolutely laugh your ass off. Literally laugh your ass off. I've never seen something like this in my entire life. Of what about? Related to the state on February 4th, 2026. Now, fast forward all the way down here, the last line. Alexander provided a sworn statement. However, due to technical issues with official court reporters' electronic service, the audio recording was lost. Ready for this statement? Okay, here we go. Mario Fernandez was stressed out about his case and his hair was falling out. Fernandez said that the widow of the victim was an evil bitch. Fernandez knew Alexander had a bond hearing coming up and was raising money to bond out, and approached Alexander with a plan to help him, quote unquote, frame the widow, end quote. What? Fernandez asked Alexander to contact Fernandez's brother and attorney when he was released to mail letters to the media and law enforcement agencies. The letters contained information provided by Fernandez to make Henry Tenon look like a liar. Do you understand how this is absolutely ridiculous? Because Henry Tenon at this point has February 4th, 2026. Henry Tenon's already recanted. We're aware of that, right? Let's see. The letters contain information to make Henry Tenon look like a liar and to suggest that the widow killed the victim because she was suspicious of him being gay, and that Alexander was supposed to make it up that he, the victim, was going to the gym to look at guys. What? Fernandez provided Alexander with cases regarding prosecutorial misconduct and wanted to point everything to Tenon and to, quote unquote, turn the situation around. Right. On him. Fernandez stated that my wife, Gardner, was the mastermind, and that he, Fernandez, was supposed to be the executioner in discussions about his case, with a nonverbal acknowledgement that it was true. So, what? Fernandez stated that Tenon was drugged out or drunk or both. Fernandez asked Alexander to assist in setting Judge Kite up. Because he knew Alexander was a Freemason. No wonder the recording is lost. This is crazy. Well, I'm like, wait, excuse me? We got gay guys. We got people checking people out at fucking gyms. Hello, Pride Month. Jesus. What? And now we got Freemasons entering the chat, entering the discussion, right? Fernandez said that there was a 12-year-old girl with a case against him in the Carolinas that the judge had sealed to hide that the widow set him up. What? Fernandez said that he reviewed his discovery and that they don't have anything on me, and stated that the time was off with him being a certain place and that someone from the state had come to his defense team's side. Fernandez stated that Tenon was in Nassau and that he was trying to get to him. Later, when Tenon was moved back to Duval County, the jail, Fernandez said he was trying to make him recant. Alexander provided a sworn statement. However, due to technical issues with official court reporter's electronic service, the audio recording was lost. Wait, there's more. You guys, this was February 4th, 2026. Then, you cannot make this up. Then on April Fool's Day, relayed to the state on April 1st, 2026. This is just a couple months ago. During a recorded sworn statement, Fernandez was supposed to be innocent. And Alexander was supposed to be helping him frame the victim's wife for murder, and to discredit the co-defendant, Henry Tenon. Fernandez told him that the night of the murder, the co-defendant and the victim's wife passed by each other, and that Fernandez was trying to use that fact to discredit her and put her on as a defendant. Fernandez said that she, Gardner, was supposed to be the MM, which is mastermind. And he was supposed to be the executioner, which he executed the plan. And an acknowledgement that it was true. Nonverbal. What? You guys, what is this shit? Okay? Like, oh my God. So it got me thinking, right? And I said, holy shit. Did Kirsten Bridegan leave her house that night to go look for Jared because he wasn't coming home, because he wasn't answering the phone, right? Did she go looking for him? I said, who waits this long to speak to someone, right? You had him in there February 2nd or February 4th, all of February, all of March. Okay, we're going to have him back in here on April Fool's Day. And hey, look at, this is not recorded, right? But this right here, just this little piece, this is what gets recorded. I said, this is nonsense and not recorded until second time and way less said. And then this is Alexander advised these statements were made between May 2025 and March of 2026. I said, bullshit. I said, they couldn't have been March. I said, February comes before March, you dumb fucks. I said, and he said all of this in February. So how can he say that this is until March of 2026? Like, everybody can just get all the way fucked. This is all lies. Alexander has the following pending charges: attempted murder in the second degree, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and tampering with evidence in case blah, 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 blah. Alexander has 2 prior felony convictions. Alexander has never previously cooperated in any case. The state has made no offers or promises regarding his pending case, and Alexander's bond was reduced over state's objection. Then they have this latent print unit report to be provided upon request. That means they just telling you that it exists. Come and get it. Then K, and I about fell over. Packet of letters. And I said, what? And book provided by Emmanuel Alexander, available for inspection at the JSO property room. Sworn statement of Emmanuel Alexander recorded. Oh, so just this one right here. This is of what? These are your notes that you took? You guys haven't taken notes ever, not once. Then we get to some good shit. So anyways, there's a packet of letters. And you guys, you know how this can work, right? If someone's got a packet of letters and it's like, hey, will you please give this to, send this stuff to the media. Okay. So I can't wait to see if any of this, I have no idea what's going on, but there is a packet of letters. There's a book. Okay. Book. And then here we get to the Giglio material. And I'm like, Giglio? Well, and I said, this is Serena Dent. And I was like, oh my God, that's from Shanna Gardner. That's a jailhouse rat from Shanna Gardner's side. And guess what? She was arrested in custody and was charged by information on April 24, 2026 with battery in a detention facility. So this girl who is a bad motherfucker, man. Go look at what she's in for. They have to release more information. Oh, well, she just got charged with battery while she's been in custody. Then Maria Biggerstaff. Now, this is a big one. Maria Biggerstaff is John Biggerstaff's wife. and who is a swinger and who Mario Saldana was recording while he's fucking her. Okay. So Mario Saldana has in his phone pictures of Maria Biggerstaff naked and in compromising situation, you know, but then also was just recording having sex with her. Okay. Maria Biggerstaff advised the state during a meeting. They had a meeting with her at the SAO's office on April 15th, 2026. Like just freaking, what is it? A month and a half ago. That she just advised, hey, that John Biggerstaff told her his son came over today and was wearing a wire. She did not recall the date. That's it. You guys, if you don't want to follow this case with me, you are wild. This case is going to have it all. I mean, how John Biggerstaff is not in cuffs, how Jeremy Ordway is not in cuffs, how none of these people are being charged. What? But yet you're using these people that are going to straight up try to say that I cannot wait. I just cannot wait to see, because it's all been redacted from all the police reports. We're not able to see because there's an investigation going on into them. Okay. And that's why Jose Baez is out here saying, listen, we have co-conspirators that are unindicted. They're not indicted here. They're not what's going on here? Okay. And John Biggerstaff is supposedly the one that provided this gun, this 10 millimeter gun. Okay. They can't find it. Well, let's talk about who John Biggerstaff is. And let's talk about Juan Biggerstaff, his son. They're fucking cops, motherfuckers. They are cops. Okay. They worked for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. The dad did. So did his friends. But then the son moved off to Texas and he's a cop out there. But guess what he does? He flies back. What are the odds of this happening? John Biggerstaff's son, Juan Biggerstaff, he flies in for his wedding. And during the week of the wedding, Juan Biggerstaff's wedding, he gets in on a Tuesday, the murder's on a Wednesday, and then he gets married on a Friday or Saturday. They have like the rehearsal dinner the one night, I think it was Friday, and then the wedding Saturday. And these motherfuckers are plotting and planning a fucking murder for hire. Say what? And guess where this 10 millimeter gun was supposedly was who had it? Was the son. So think about this. If the son, now the son when he, okay, let me back up. John Biggerstaff, the reason he was flagged in the beginning and the reason that I believe ATF was involved from the beginning is because of the name John Biggerstaff. John Biggerstaff was flagged and was on the FBI's most wanted list for sex trafficking and shit like that. Wild shit. And he says, no, that's a big, that is such a big confusion. That is totally a misunderstanding. Motherfucker does time. Fuck him. Fuck this fat fuck. He's a lying piece of shit. Anyways, so Mario knows this man because Mario knew his daughter, and his daughter has been since married, and her last name is, I think it's like Atkinson, and her name's Stephanie. So it was like Stephanie and Juan, brother and sister. John Biggerstaff's kids, Stephanie and Juan. Stephanie gets married to Tyler Atkinson, so she becomes Stephanie Atkinson. Mario knew Stephanie though before she was married, and I think they may have been. So not only did Mario, I think, bang Biggerstaff's daughter, but then I think he banged his wife. I know he banged his wife, Maria, because there's videos of it and they announced that they're swingers, but that Shanna Gardner does not get down with that lifestyle, okay? And that she's not around. And if, you know, I think John Biggerstaff said once, like, man, like, look at that fucking girl's ass, talking about Shanna Gardner. And Shanna Gardner she was really fit, you know, nice ass, awesome. And Mario said, shut the fuck up to him, like, you know. So here, this is their relationship. Like, They got some sexual shit going down. All right. Shanna Gardner is not about that lifestyle, though. Supposedly, allegedly. Okay. And she's over here working like 3 goddamn jobs. You would think with these rich parents, right, that they want to proclaim, hey, well, then why is she doing all her own stuff? Why is she starting her own baking business? Why is she always baking this stuff? Why is she's always working. She was working at the school. She's always working. This doesn't sound like a trust fund baby to me. I know trust fund people. Okay, we're always at the golf course playing with mommy and daddy's money. All right, we're playing like $500 a hole over here at Scioto. That's what we do with trust fund baby money. Okay, they're not in a bakery baking and trying to like launch a new business. So here, all of a sudden, now just think about this timing. In January of 2022, Shanna Gardner says, hey, we're not going to be married anymore. I want to get a divorce. Like, this is over. And she's like, let's just wait till the end of the school year. So she tells the school this. So the school's on record and came out and said, yep, she told us this. This is facts. So right after Shanna Gardner says this to Mario, think about it. That means Mario's cake life is going bye-bye. Not Shanna Gardner's cake life. Mario's cake life is going bye-bye. Right? So Shanna Gardner says, hey, we're going to be getting divorced. Like, just things aren't working out. Like, it's just, you know, I basically married like a nanny. Okay. Then all of a sudden, right after this talk, Mario Saldana is then communicating with John Biggerstaff and Henry Tenon and other people. And then he's in this mode of plot to kill Jared Bridegan. What? No joke. Seriously. The evidence will show you that in January, and in the month of January, that they're going to show that, try to say that there was all this plotting and planning because they were doing test runs and dry runs to do this killing. Then when you look at the evidence, it's going to also try to show you that, wait a second, John Biggerstaff has his son's wedding. So the week of his son's wedding, when his son is flying in, that's when we're going to do it. We're going to do it on that Wednesday of the week of my son's wedding. We're going to, he comes in on Tuesday. We're all going to have dinner. We're going to have dinner Wednesday night at my daughter's. I'm going to be at my daughter's. I'm going to have my alibi all good to go because we're having this dinner. That's where we're all going to be. And Juan's coming in, and I'm just going to have him bring my guns. How did you get them guns on? Like, where has this 10 millimeter been, right? Because when he got in trouble with the Fed shit, they had to take all of his gun away from him in like 2016. And he had to surrender all of his guns. So he gave them to his son, and they were in a safe. And that's where this Fred guy comes into play, because randomly after the murders, and so like, I don't know how long had passed, but Fred gets a phone call by Juan Biggerstaff and is like, hey, do you have like my dad's guns? Then John Biggerstaff hits up Fred and he's like, what the fuck's going on? This is super weird. And so here, poor Fred gets tossed into this shit, and Fred's like, the fuck, I gave you guys that shit back. You guys had your shit here for like 6 months, and that was back in like 2016. You guys know I don't have your fucking guns. You guys know I don't have your stupid ass beat up piece of shit, safe. It's not even a gun safe. It's like a shelf, whatever. So that's who Fred's going to be, by the way. And Fred used to date, I think, Maria Biggerstaff. So anyways, you're going to sit here and tell me that why the hell? And Juan is a fucking cop in Texas. Okay. But here, that's why when I see these written, all this bullshit of plotting and planning this for fucking since 2021, I'm laughing at that because they're like, okay, November of 2021. I'm like, who was communicating with who in November of 2021? Because none of this popped off until Shanna Gardner said, I'm divorcing you. And that's where my theory of the case comes in, which I believe it's going to be the defense's theory, because it's what totally makes sense here is that Shanna Gardner had no idea this was going to happen. None. And then when it did happen, right, then it's like, who's blackmailing who? Are you going to leave me now? Are you going to leave me now? Can you leave me now? And then Shanna Gardner's over here like, well, I know that Mario didn't do it because Mario's at the house when this shooting occurred. So Shanna's over here why would I think that Mario was involved if Mario's at the house when this happens? That's why I said, can the cops put Shanna Gardner meeting with the bigger staffs ever, meeting with Henry Tenen, meeting with Jeremy? I mean, where is Shanna Gardner when you think this plotting and planning is going on? Where is it? It's not there. And why did this happen literally a month and a half, not even, after Shanna Gardner says, I'm divorcing you? And we're waiting until the summer because we're not going to do this while the kids are in school. We're waiting for the summer to come to, do everything during the summer. Now, also, if she's going to divorce Mario, right, that's also going to put her in a position with Jared. People are going to say that, well, Jared wasn't going to let them, he's going to, basically, if you weren't married to a guy isn't going to be around his kids, stuff like that, that mentality. So then Shanna Gardner is going to do that. It's going to announce that she's getting divorced. And then say, yeah, let's go kill my ex-husband. That's a really fucking stupid plan, don't you think? For Shanna Gardner to do, to say, yeah, let me tell the school I'm going to be, divorcing my current husband, who then puts me in a situation, if that's going to happen, where my ex-husband is going to, listen, they were not in some hot custody battle at that point. She moved and lived right next to the school. He said, okay, Shanna Gardner said to him, listen, if the kids can go to this school, you don't have to pay me child support. Like, let them go to the Discovery School. They're going to stay here, and it doesn't matter where anybody lives. Boom, boom, boom. And he said yes. Also, Jared Bridegan left at the beginning and went to Utah and left the kids with Shanna Gardner. So the way that they think that this divorce is going to hit on a jury is absolutely laughable to me, because it's not what people are saying. Jared left and went to Utah to go find a new wife, basically. Came back, had a new, was engaged, and then that girl was like, oh, hell, what the fuck did I get myself involved in? And calls Shanna Gardner and becomes friends with Shanna Gardner and then leaves and goes back to Utah. And then so the only reason he came back to Florida is because Shanna Gardner's like, well, I'm going to rearrange all this paperwork because, like, you're not here. I have the kids all the time. Like, oh, no. And you have a job now. Oh, no. He quits his job, moves back just so he doesn't have to pay child support or some shit like that. I'm like, that's super weird. But he's coming with this new fiance. Then this new fiance was like, oh God, what did I get myself into? Calls Shanna Gardner, and there's proof of this. She was interviewed and was like, yeah. And so moves, then she breaks off the engagement. And then just a couple months after that, he's engaged again to who he's married to right now, the widow Kirsten. And she moved from, like, I don't know, the Carolinas, I think. Again, this all happened so fucking fast. But what people think and what the media is trying to portray of this case is nothing what they are saying. Okay. And so Shanna Gardner, like anybody, if I have the child all the time, or in this situation, the twins all the time, then we need to have all of this changed, and you should be paying X amount of dollars. And And then he's like, no, you have a trust fund and your parents are loaded, so I shouldn't have to pay any money. And it's like, that's just not how it works, okay? It doesn't matter what your parents make. When Shanna Gardner and Jared, you guys are going to find out, when Shanna Gardner and Jared were married and Jared was going to school, you're going to just fall over when you find out what their stipend was per month that they got to just have. Okay. Why would she kill him if she was divorcing him? Divorcing who? Mario? She wouldn't kill. No, that's the whole point. Is that doesn't make any sense. Also, so then we get to where everything stood. They were not in the courtroom for a couple years prior to this, and it was like done and over with. Basically, they had 1 week on, 1 week off. Every other Wednesday, the other parent got to have date night. Okay, and Shanna said, I'll pay for the kids to go to the Discovery School, and let them go to the Discovery School. I'll pay for them to go there, and I'll get rid of your child support. Jared said, yep, perfect. Signed. Does that sound like somebody that, done. Over. Like, those are the facts. Of their divorce. So this whole like hot contentious, if you want to go off of stuff from 2015 and 2016 when somebody's going through a divorce compared to 2022, so here what it seems like to me is that Mario Saldana did this with his little crew, and he did it so that Shanna Gardner couldn't leave him. You understand? That's what I believe happened. And I don't think she had anything to do with it. And I think that was Mario's way of forever extorting her, forever getting money from her. Like, you're going to leave me now? That's what the evidence shows to me, because it's a very panicky thing. Who would ever kill somebody after they were dropped off from a date night that, what? That's pretty, like, who only knows of that? The parents, right? It's a really fucked up way to, but here, when the police got involved, they said that they thought that the person that did this was, that they thought that they were dealing with somebody that was law enforcement. Did I tell you guys this part? So how was he going to blame? He wasn't going to blame her. No one's going to blame her. He's going to, for the rest of her life, if you don't, it's like one of these things like, here, I'll take us both out. Watch me. I'll take us both out. Like, I'll ruin your life. This is a way for him to keep his cush life. But as I was saying, it's blackmail in a way. It's extortion. So what was I saying that before that? Oh, going back to the night of the murder. So every Wednesday, they always had date night. Why the hell would you ever kill Jared Bridegan if you're Shanna Gardner when you and Kirsten and those are the only people that would like know their whereabouts and their schedule and their routine, that they do that every Wednesday from like, I don't know, 6:30 to 7:30 or something like that. That would be the dumbest thing you could ever fucking do, is to kill that man at that time. And so the police early on, they believed that somebody had lots of knowledge with law enforcement stuff. And I cannot wait for this to come out as to why they believed this. Okay. And it was like stuff with like geofencing. It's going to come out that they believed that the person that did this had knowledge of how law enforcement worked, with like behind the scenes with how they went about investigating cases. So, and they have all three of these cases, as they have, I don't believe that Henry Tenen is the shooter. Okay. I believe that Henry Tenen's vehicle was borrowed and Henry Tenen did not know why. They borrowed his truck. I do believe that. And I do not believe that Henry Tenen knew. Henry Tenen was waiting at one of the restaurants over there. And he's like, basically like, where the fuck are you type of thing, and calls his phones, or with one of his phones, calls the other phone because the one phone was in the truck. Because this was not like, you're borrowing my truck, because they said that they were repossessing something. You're going to have to listen to him if he's even going to testify, but it was, and it wasn't Mario Saldana that borrowed it. It was a guy. He's like, he always does landscaping job. He was like trying to describe this to the police. He's like, there's nothing that I can do to give you that, to give you Mario. If I could, I would. Okay. And I believe the payments after the fact was because Mario wanted Saldana or Mario wanted Tenen to get rid of his truck. Hey, we have this right after the murders, a couple weeks, not even afterwards, they show a picture of this blue truck. Okay. And it was all over the Jacksonville, news. And I think that the payment, nobody pays somebody after the fact for a fucking hit. Okay. And nobody pays $10,000 for a hit. That truck was very important to Henry Tenen because his dad had left it to him after he died. Okay. And I think Mario Saldana tried to blow up the truck and it didn't work. I think that Mario tried to do things to that truck to make it so that it wouldn't work anymore. Then he had to get Henry Tenen, like, here, I will pay you to get rid of this truck. I need you to get rid of this truck. That's how the evidence looks for me. Lana, you don't know their budget. Yeah, I do. I got their budget down pat. The reason I'm saying all this stuff is because that's what the evidence shows. Like, Henry Tenen's calling for a tow truck the one day and trying to get his, truck towed, and then he's having to like push. I mean, Henry Tenen, you guys, he's what the state did and used and did to him in this case is fucking an absolute sin, in my opinion. They knew that he wasn't the shooter. They knew that he wasn't the shooter, and they were going to let him confess to a murder that he didn't commit and falsely testify against the defendants because it's like, hey, you're going down for this. Here's an opportunity for you to only serve 15 years. Because they need Henry Tenen to say, because they don't have it. They weren't able to, you're going to see the case. And before Henry Tenen ever even agreed to this shit, okay, because he wasn't agreeing to it, they came out and they arrested him, Henry Tenen, for the second time. The first time was a traffic shit in August of 2022. The second time was the big media ploy to get all these people to start talking. They want to call it the bump. So they arrest Henry Tenen in jail and for the murder of Jared Bridegan and saying that big thing that we've all watched, press conference, that was a ploy to get all these people to communicate, because that came out in 2023 in January. And then what happens in January 2023? In 2023, January and February, that's when they're like, we're applying for these search warrants to put on Saldana and Shanna Gardner. It's like, you've been talking to John Biggerstaff. Why doesn't he give it up? You've been talking to Henry. If you have these people saying this stuff, why do you need any of this shit? Right? Why aren't you using their statements in your affidavit to get probable cause? Like, that's particular. That's saying, like, yes, you're going to find information of me plotting and planning. Okay. They didn't do that. It's because nobody was saying any of that shit. And I cannot wait to see what type of defense is put on for Shanna Gardner. Can't wait to see what type of defense is put on for Mario Saldana. Because Henry Tenon has never once come out and said anything. He's only just nodded and agreed to the statements that the prosecution said, here, this is what you're going to say. What? This is what you're going to say in order to get your plea deal? I've never seen such a thing. Then Judge Kite determines, in another order that's sealed right now, which I'm waiting to get my hands on, that Judge Kite is going to let some of the statements that Henry Tenon said for a plea deal to be used against him in his trial. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm saying whatever you want me to say so I get my plea deal. And God, if you're going to have to put on Henry Tenon on the stand, which I would if I was Julie, I think that you're going to be able to get some sympathy out of that jury from him. I think that he was totally taken advantage of. And you have the, I think that there's some recordings of where Stifler is coaching and saying, listen, we know, like, basically saying these white people took advantage of you. Yeah, Stifler went hard about that. Don't let them take advantage of you. Like, stop that. Like, they're using you. And she played the white and black card. And I hope that comes out in trial, because I think that it should. I hope everything that Stifler and Maserati did comes out, because they knew Henry Tenon was not the shooter. Sorry, he just was not the shooter. And no shit, you're going to have his DNA at that crime scene. It was his fucking truck. It was his tires. So I would think that his DNA would be on his tires, okay, that he bought and paid for. Stuff from his car. That doesn't put him at the crime scene. Put him at the crime scene, please. Henry Tenon did not shoot anybody. And Julie Schlack is his attorney, and she's fighting for him. She is, and she's getting all the resources. She went and got, you guys should see all the stuff that Julie did. Here, I can pull it up. Amen to Julie. Give her so much credit. But it's funny that right after Henry Tenon says, I want to withdraw my plea deal, that this Emmanuel guy comes forward, right? And it's like, get the fuck out of here, man. I don't think that in cases like this, let's go to Henry. No, wait, Henry Tenon, something like this. How anybody on the jury could give any credence to what somebody like that would say is beyond me. So if you go to the clerk of circuit court for Duval County in Florida, you will find Henry Tenon, as well as Mario, as well as Shanna Gardner. You'll find their cases, and here is Henry's. And so if you go and pull up Henry's, and you scroll down, See this one right here. Court order granting in part and denying in part defendant's motion to preclude statements made during the course of plea negotiations. 12 pages. Court order appointing an electronic forensic expert. That's new. Who did she go with? Look at this. I'm going to show you how much money only Henry got to use. The cause came to be heard upon the defendant's motion for appointment of an electronics forensics expert to assist in the defense. Anybody that's going to title it electronics instead of digital forensic, come on. Like, you know, I mean, God love Julie, but she's way in over her head. Julie Schlax is hereby authorized to incur the reasonable expenses of obtaining Aaron Weiss. There you go. Oh my God, no way. I know him. Holy shit. He got a really good person. Come on. But look at this. Only $3,000 to not exceed initial cost of $3,000 and an hourly rate of $200 an hour. Do you know how fast that goes? Do the math. Do the math. He's getting 15 hours. 15 hours of work. That's it. "27th day of May, she signed it. Again, this is just the to not exceed initial costs. So there is a way to get some wiggle room, but I bet you Aaron will, I just have a feeling that he's not gonna, there's just no, like, come on, someone's life is on the line and you get pulled into that role. Attached for the court's consideration, please find a motion and proposed order for appointment of an electronics forensic expert. Also attached is a proposed order. So this is how you go about getting, you know, the state to pay for your stuff. But yes, Truth and Transparency will be in Florida for this one. Yes. Oh my God. I'm just really happy, you guys. I did not know that Aaron was going to be on for Henry Tenen. Like, this is fucking amazing news. Amazing news for Henry. I at least can say that he knows what he's doing. So there you go for Henry. Good job. All right. That's where I'm going to leave it here with the Shanna Gardner case. It's crazy. It's wild. Judge Kite off the rockers with her rulings, in my opinion. And we'll be back with more on the next one. Thank you, moderators, subscribers, members, lurkers. Join me. We will be beginning a new live on a new topic right after I close this out. So, Allie Tally says 1000% do not believe Henry Tenen involved based on jail calls. Yep, jail calls. Yep, 1000. Totally agree. Yeah, Florida has insane rules limiting defense experts' funds. Their rates do not allow them to hire even average experts pay in most fields. Yeah, but that one's interesting for me for $200 an hour. So we'll see. All right, guys.